Hello, welcome to GC's Book Club with me, GCmckay. On today's show we'll be discussing The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea by Yukio Mishima. And well, since there's a few people in here, it was slow. For some reason this thing's been a bit slow to update of late, but yeah, first published in 1965. The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea, I believe, is actually kind of part of a non-official maybe trilogy or 4-part Odyssey, something like that. I'm not sure how true that is. I kind of came across it when I was skimming through other people's verdicts of it, but yeah, it's not really that relevant to me, because though they might connect in certain ways, I'm not sure how relevant that is, which is a terrible introduction. I'll be first and foremost to admit. Look at this shambles. I thought I got all this already. Let's do this. Let's get into this. Bad resolution on the book cover, but never mind. This actually is pretty shit. Fuck's sake, man. Alright, that'll do. It's good enough. Alright, let's start over. We'll start over. Hello. Right, let's crack into it a bit more. I'll give my verdicts on it first. I mean, this is the second time I've read the piece. I read it just as much, I enjoyed it just as much as the first time, if not a little bit more, actually. I think I could take a step back from it a bit more, instead of being engrossed within the text, having the knowledge of what's going to occur, but at the same time not quite remembering the series of events. It was quite refreshing to just explore the story, but also kind of look at what Mishima was trying to do, or what he did succeed at doing, and what maybe he didn't succeed at certain points. I found the... Alright, we'll go into the brief synopsis first of all, and I'll go to bit of Goodreads for this. So according to them, The Sailor Who Fell from Grace of the Sea tells the tale of a band of savage 13-year-old boys who reject the adult world as illusory, hypocritical and sentimental, and train themselves in a brutal callousness they call objectivity. When the mother of one of them begins an affair with a ship's officer, a sailor, he and his friends idolise the man at first, but it is not long before they conclude that he is in fact soft and a pussy. They regard their disappointment in him as an act of betrayal on his part, and react violently. Well, I mean, that basically sums up the whole book, so I don't really know whether there's much point in me giving much of a summary, but I would say that there's kind of 3 stories happening in this book. Yes, that is, as the synopsis said, that is the kind of overall conclusion, I suppose you could give to it, but it really tells the story of Noboru, who is the 13-year-old boy of Fusako, who is a widowed mother, and Ryuji Sukazaki, I think is the name, who is the sailor who comes back to port and who, well, gets it on with Fusako, and who afterwards, we have it split into two ways. So we've got winter first, or is it summer first? I can't remember. Summer first and then winter. So there is there's so much control in this piece. I would say that the level of control is something to be admired. I tried to actually look up the word count. Google is now useless, so I don't know what to do with that. That AI overview shit is fucking crap. I can't believe they forced us to use this or to even look at it. But according to that, at first, it said it was 144,000 words. It is nowhere near 144,000 words. It is probably closer to 44,000. And I thought maybe less. The reason I bring this up is not that it's particularly relevant, but I do feel like that level of control is within the amount of words that are in it. Like, you can kind of feel like each chapter is very, almost, if you were to balance it, on a weighing kind of machine, you wouldn't imagine any one or particular chapter to kind of drag the others down. Like, everything's pretty much level overall, but obviously some chapters hit a bit more heavily than others, but I'll get to that. But I would also say that the Act 1 of the summer is replicated in the winter. It's just more extreme, but near enough it is the same plot. So we do have Noboru, and funnily enough, I found the first description of him is how he discovers a peephole, because his room's adjacent to his mother's. He happens to discover that when he opens the drawer, he realizes that he can see light, and after he takes out the drawers and looks through it, he's actually peeking and peeping into his mother's room. And this is all like, I mean, really symbolically, I suppose this is like the birth of how the story is beginning and all that malarkey. But at the same time, it is also his fascination with watching his own mother get boned, essentially. Like that, there is a little, I mean, it's not really mentioned much in terms of like whether that's weird or not throughout the novel, because it's like, is this some Oedipal fantasy or something? Because it's a bit like, and then Mishima will go on to, you know, talk about Mummy and her pretty good bod for a 33-year-old type of woman who's had a child, and, you know, all of this kind of stuff. And you kind of think, is he just trying to make this seem normal? Like, maybe this is normal, I don't know. I mean, it's not really for us to judge, I suppose, but it is a bit odd, I have to admit. Especially, like, you can kind of understand his fascination with it, but then when he continues to look, it becomes a bit like, okay. And I also find it funny because in Confessions of a Mask, he also vividly describes his first ejaculation over the Saint Sebastian painting, and how when he discovers this in an art book, he's so overwhelmed by the passion it derives in him that he simply, well, gives it a cum tribute, pretty much. And I felt like there was a quite kind of a crossover with this. Not that we get any descriptions of him jerking it off, because the group that he's a part of is actually, they're not anti-sex, but they do give off somewhat anti-natal vibes at times. But they're also like, they find it to be crude and of a weak person's or weak man's mentality to, you know, jerk off and stuff like that. So they claim to have seen all of the porn that's out there, or, you know, been exposed to the different positions. And I don't know, I mean, this is kind of like a, I mean, it's thrown out there that they're supposedly familiar with all this stuff, even though they're all a bunch of 13-year-old boys who, let's face it, probably haven't even started jerking off yet, or at least some of them haven't, and, you know, never mind even kissing a girl. So by the fact that he is morbidly fascinated by watching his mum and this sailor get it on, I don't know, you kind of make of that what you will, I suppose. Not to say that the novel's particularly sexual in any way, but it does have this allusion to it, I suppose, at least in a very juvenile fascination type of sense. But it's certainly not a focus of it. So yeah, this is your introduction. You realise that he's often locked in the room by Fusako for reasons that I would imagine are supposed to be for safety. It's not quite explained, but in a weird way, I suppose it is. It's symbolic, a lot of it. I think it's he is often left to be inside there, but she locks him in just, I think, for her own reassurance. But if you imagine a sailor out at sea, he is essentially locked in his room because there's nowhere for him to go. So the moments when the key is kind of abandoned is almost like we are then lost at sea. But Noboru, as well as Ryuji, who is the man who is going to be his father-in-law after the midway point, basically. So what happens once he gets on port and he meets the mother, and they arrange to, have a date, and then everything goes pretty quickly, and they end up in bed, and then they do separate again by the end of the first part. But then when he returns, it seems to him that the yearning that he once had for the sea and adventure has kind of dwindled, and he feels more of a passion, or at least like he wants to devote himself to Fusako. After that, it seems like he proposes to her, and by all accounts, it seems like he is going to finally settle on land, which, a lot of the symbolism is actually I would say it's kind of between chaos and order, and which is discussed by the group of boys, who are kind of like a little scallywag group of Lord of the Flies-esque nihilists, really. Probably more extreme overall, considering what they end up doing, not only to the Ryuji, but also to a defenseless animal in the beginning parts. But yeah, they are basically like savages who think they are all geniuses, and all. It's very typical kind of immature masculinity, or at least striving for masculinity, that is really I would imagine it's about to kind of ruin their lives, but we don't really get to delve much deeper by the end of the piece, but I'll get to that. And yeah, I would say that there's three plots going on, and really you've got three versions of Mishima's personality going on, because it's hard not to kind of talk about the man. And this is only with tidbits of information, but he was essentially a right-wing homosexual nationalist who in the past had not only learnt the craft and way of the sword because he was born from a samurai family, but he was also an actor, a writer, a poet, a performer, and who eventually tried to organise a coup against the military, and having failed and feeling that shame of that failure, decided to commit seppuku, which, if you're not sure what that is the old way of the samurai, but is also a form of suicide where you disembowel yourself with a knife, essentially. And he did that at the age of 45, having achieved what he achieved. So he's a fascinating individual. I don't think anyone can deny that. Like, the level of contradiction in him, just with that description alone, I think you can actually see it throughout his writing. I think, especially when it comes to wanting greatness of some sort of capacity, like the striving for greatness, but not quite knowing how it's going to be delivered, and being willing to put yourself out there, take risks, never settle for anything, to be constantly almost sabotaging yourself in order to try and achieve this opaque status. It's all quite, yeah, it's almost like he wants to live by the way of the samurai, but at the same time he wants the glory and the fame, which is, I would say, a paradox when it comes to that way of living. But there's also the worry that, due to the westernized values of Japan at the time and of the push toward that, and the dismissal of the Japanese way of life, he felt like there was something being overlooked with it, like they were losing their identity. And in a lot of ways you can kind of stack, or at least like divide this piece between, he is all the characters essentially. Like Fusako is his more tender feminine side, his gayer side, some might say. The kid is that somewhat naive but yet industrious and rebellious side of him that never really left. That was with him all the way through. And I would say that Ryuji is the adventurous, but also in a kind of more wondrous capacity. Like there was a childlike element to it, but it was always to do with this concept of reaching this higher kind of goal or status or even being to some point. And I would even say the actress who's like a side character in it, that's probably partly him as well, the vanity side of him, the one that believes that people would only pay attention to him because he was, good looking, well built man who'd looked after himself, things like that. But the further fascinating part, I think, in it is this discussion throughout it to do with what is beauty. How do you even get an idea of this? What is it that can make something unique, I suppose? And the opposition to that. So the sea is a metaphor throughout it because of the chaotic and memoryless nature of it, but also how it can't be controlled, whereas the land is seen as something that people settle on. They find common ground, to use a pun, but also they find a logic to it where it's reliable, but therefore it's familiar, and therefore it's contemptible in some degree or another. So I think probably the biggest part of Mishima is in Ryuji, but at the same time Noboru encapsulates this inner madman that he had, that he was probably the source of a lot of his... I'll go out on a whim. I do think there's levels, or at least shades, of genius in his work. I'm not sure it's always achieved, because as much as I can admire the prose, I think the best of it comes at the beginning, and then it becomes a little bit matter of fact as it goes on, and almost, but not quite, lets that go to become more... what would be the word? I suppose paint by number, or in a lot of ways. Like, I think the beginning really tries to build this world, and you do see this sense of like how the ocean is kind of almost invading the land in this metaphorical sense, and all the talk about glory and adventure and beauty and things like that, they're within it, but at the same time it's also foreshadowing quite a lot. Because in some ways I would say that the sailor who falls from grace from the sea does actually get the death that he wishes for, just in the totally opposite way that he would imagine. So there is this pining in him, and even right at the end there's this little moment where it's like, has he made the right decision? And then that's just before he's basically shown the plank with which he's going to have to walk off. And there are a few incidences of this, but it's almost I suppose it's used in a kind of dramatic irony sense quite a lot of the time, where the characters kind of get what they want, but what that costs them ends up being the thing they thought they wanted, which is kind of, well, the definition of irony, I suppose. But yeah, I enjoyed it quite a lot. I thought basically, so the group, that they have a chief, and he's the biggest cunt of them all, obviously. But the kind of ways they have looking at the world are a little bit advanced, I would say, for 13-year-old boys. I mean, I know they're Japanese, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt here, but I did think the believability was pushed a little bit at times, because it was like, would they be able to really think this much outside of the box at this age? I mean, it felt a little bit almost militant in the way they looked at the world. And whilst I think there was some mention of how the chief has read every book in his household and all this kind of stuff, and comprehended it, and, you know, summarized in his own way what the crux of it all was, it's a little bit like, without a mentor or without any kind of guidance, I don't know about that, to be honest. And it does have a level of, I would say, maturity that is probably beyond their years. But it's a small thing. And I did think this the first time I read it, when I was just like, these kids, even though there are moments of naivety, at the same time they're a little bit Nietzschean. And I'm just like, I don't imagine 13-year-old Nietzsche spouting shit like will to power and actually knowing what the fuck he was talking about. But I don't know, maybe if they are geniuses, maybe that is the way. But and so, yeah, Fusako owns a kind of quite well-to-do clothing shop that is importing English materials. She's very good at her job. She's inherited it from her late husband, but they had it together. But she's actually the proprietress and has thrived pretty well within it. She's not exactly. It's hard. I can't really describe much about her, nor really the other characters. I would say that the actual characterization is put on the sidelines with this book, to a certain level. You get glimpses here and there, but you don't really know much more about Fusako apart from what you're told, in terms of, yeah, she's a widow, she has a 13-year-old boy, she is romantically involved with Ryuji. Ryuji has a clean history, but we only really find these things out because, on the guidance of the actress, who's very well known in Japan, yeah, Fusako hires a PI to investigate him, to check that he is as clean as he makes out, and you know, honest in what he wants from her and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, so we kind of get fed a bit of exposition, which is all right. I mean, I think it's cleverly delivered, and it does make his demise probably all the more tragic in a lot of regard, because it kind of seemed like the moment he actually found some sort of meaning he could nurture, the very thing that he would watch grow is the thing that kills him, essentially. We don't actually know for sure if that's what happens, but it's pretty damn clear by the end. You're kind of like, okay, yeah, he's about to get disemboweled, like the cat that they decide to just rip apart just to see its inside. I don't know whether or not Mishima wanted to do such things as well. I only say that because of his history, but also the kind of quips, the little quips about the glory of murder and how man isn't free at all. And I mean, some of it does make some decent claims. You know, it's like, as soon as the law of the land get their hands on you, you're basically fucked, and you're not free to do anything, and you're kind of I think there's one line about your creativity gets crushed, not only by your parents and society, but just by others surrounding you, until you just become nothing but basically a normie sheep kind of person who quivers at the idea of their own freedom and things like that. So there are some interesting notions to consider here, but when you know that this is just a tribe of pseudo-intellectual, horny, nothing better to do boys, then you kind of realise that it's all a level of probably strong coping mechanisms with the boredom of their lives, or the maybe just the stark reality of being a teenage boy at such a time and being so bored that killing a cat for entertainment's sake is enough. But they make it out to be something glorious because that, you know, you're ending a life and seeing what that is like up front. You know, I mean, the levels of psychopathy are pretty much there, flat out on the page. But I do think Mishima does a very good job of lulling you in with his descriptive prose, because reading it as harsh and brutish as it is, there is still that eloquence to it where you're kind of reading through it and you're like, I'll just keep reading. Like it doesn't hit me like in that way where it's like, fucking hell. Like in some ways the description, when he talks about even grabbing the heart from the chest of the cat after its death and feeling it in the hand and stuff, there is something, it's probably tied to sexual frustration in some ways, or at least fascination of the body and of this type of thing, but they're kind of subverting it, I suppose, in some capacity. But it's still just as readable. In the second half, things kind of go along a bit quicker. Once Ryuji is back in Japan, they're quickly arranging to marry, and he's already got crimes against him, or charges against him, through Noboru, who's just penning this down in his diary of all the things that he's doing that warrant some sort of severe punishment. And due to the scene with the cat before, it is kind of, I mean, if they do manage to get Ryuji into a position where he's somewhat defenseless, yeah, you imagine that they're just going to carry out the same thing. And they do find a law that basically will supposedly get them off the hook of this. I do think they're slightly overlooking, you know, the level of calculation and premeditation which I do think would be taken into account. But then, you know, we don't really find out what exactly happens. We're just kind of given this little hint that, yeah, he's just about to have his throat slit and body disemboweled, pretty much. Let's see what else is Oh, fiddlesticks, nice to see you. Fuck off. My least favourite Mishima so far. Mishima was a mental queer. Yeah. I like that. I like the way the sailor's commitment to the sea was revealed to be giving him nothing in return. And I liked how he essentially got the glory. But I mean, I might be stretching it a little bit in terms of like that was what he was searching for the whole time. But in a strange way, I kind of felt like he was, because it was his naive trust in this boy that kind of led him astray. And you could argue also, his idea to settle on the land and become a normie to some degree. But I quite like, your idea there. Painbow, I only let you speak to me like that. I'm not fucking having these other pricks. I mean, I'm fine with people disagreeing with me, but give me your, amazing interpretation instead. I mean, I'm just spouting here. So I do think there are flaws to the novel. I mean, I think I made that pretty clear at the beginning. There are parts of it that I think I think Mishima has a tendency to somewhat be a little bit too attention to detail in terms of his wording and wordage, because as beautiful as some of the paragraphs come across, there are times when it seems to deviate from, I think of like the correct way of doing it. It's like there were a lot of metaphors with like the sea and how that comes into the land and all this kind of stuff. And it does. I think what he does achieve very well is the vivid imagery that you have of it in your head. Like everything feels very effervescent and alive. Like you can really imagine where this place is. And I do think that it is purely down to the text. We all might have our own notion of what this Japanese area would look like, but at the same time I do think that the way he describes the reflection of light and how the crystallization of the water would start to, just basically like everything kind of comes awake within it. And there's a vividness to it that I think is stunning, and it is gorgeous to not only imagine but also to read. But there's also a line where that starts to become a little bit indulgent. And I do think the man himself was particularly indulgent. More so with Confessions of a Mask. I actually find that a little bit of a drag to read, if I'm honest, because I find it does it too much. With this one, I think it's controlled better. There's still a little bit of it here and there, but best novel ever. I think maybe if I was a bit younger, I probably would have adored this more at about 25, maybe 28 even. And I do admire it a lot. I do think there's a lot of good in it. I would say that I don't know. I think it ends really well, but at the same time, I would like to see the brutal aftermath. I would have. I don't know what. Just imagining what it would have done to Fusako and Noboru, and all of these things. I suppose that might have been asking for the novel to be something that it isn't. And yeah, there is a good argument to just leave the reader wanting more. But I felt like it was a little bit of a tease at the same time, like, and in a way, because it mirrored the first act. I don't know, something about it just made me feel a little bit like just wanted a bit something else in there. I don't know what that could be, but yeah. And I suppose the other thing would be that the ideas of what is supposedly the right way to live are pretty vague. I don't think any of these kids have a good idea of what is it then. What is a good life to lead? Is it just all the embracing of chaos? I mean, chaos probably isn't the right word, but it is in some degrees. It is putting a finger up to all of society's mores and things like that, but it doesn't really answer much else. And how one would go about that, what, by just being a sailor? You know, I mean, they make some allowances for this because they think it's a more honourable way to live than most, but at the same time, it isn't that far removed from, you know, what his mother does, really. It's just a way of making a bit of coin, you know. Yes, there are more adventures to it. Yes, there are less things to commit to, perhaps, and you are, in a sense, one with an ever-turning earth, if you want to look at it that way. But if they were true nihilists, they would probably see it has no more merit than anything else, you know, all things being equal and all of that. But good point. Good point. Boys without male role models and guidance do not know how to express their masculinity appropriately. See Modern World for rampant evidence. I know what you mean. I don't necessarily think the male role model, I mean, obviously it does play an important role, but I don't think with or without it that this type of thing wouldn't occur. Maybe the levels of extremity differ, but in a sense the kids do have a male role model, and it's in the chief, and the chief is the one who is probably Mishima, who takes it upon himself to be this mentor of theirs. And it's ironic because, I mean, the part I'd read from this is the thing he's most scathing about is fathers, when that's precisely the role he's playing for them. Although he'll, you know, claim otherwise. Whereabouts is it? I think I might have even read this on my first review of this. But it is something about, to me it just sticks out. Where is it? Where should I go? The others were forbidden to probe for the answer when the chief chose to speak in riddles. Effortlessly changing the subject, he focused the conversation on himself. Let me tell you about my vacation. On this trip we took, I was rubbing noses with my folks every day from morning to night for the first time in quite a while. Fathers. Just think about it for a minute. They're enough to make you puke. Fathers are evil itself, laden with everything ugly in man. There is no such thing as a good father because the role itself is bad. Strict fathers, soft fathers, nice moderate fathers, one's as bad as another. They stand in the way of our progress while they try to burden us with their inferiority complexes and their unrealized aspirations and their resentments and their ideals and their weaknesses they never told anyone about and their sins and their sweeter than honey dreams and the maxims they've never had the courage to live by. They'd like to unload all that silly crap on us, all of it. Even the most neglectful fathers like mine are no different. Their consciences hurt them because they've never paid any attention to their children, and they want the kids to understand just how bad the pain is, to sympathise. On New Year's Day we went to Arashiyama in Kyoto, and we were crossing the Bridge of Moons. I asked my old man a question. Dad, is there any purpose in life? You see what I was getting at, don't you? What I really mean? Father, can you give me one single reason you go on living? Wouldn't it be better to just fade away as quickly as possible? But a first-class insinuation never reaches a man like that. He kind of talks like Jordan Peterson. He just looked surprised and his eyes bugged and he stared at me. I hate that kind of ridiculous adult surprise. And when he finally answered, what do you think he said? Son, nobody is going to provide you with a purpose in life. You've got to make one for yourself. How's that for a stupid, hackneyed moral? He just pressed a button and out came one of those things fathers are supposed to say. And did you ever look at a father's eyes at a time like that? They're suspicious of anything creative, anxious to whittle the world down into something puny they can handle. A father is a reality-concealing machine, a machine for dishing up lies to kids, and that isn't even the worst of it. Secretly, he believes that he represents reality. That's a line. Fathers are the flies of this world. They hover around our heads waiting for a chance, and when they see something rotten, they buzz in and root in it. Filthy, lecherous flies broadcasting to the whole world that they've screwed with our mothers, and there's nothing they won't do to contaminate our freedom and our ability. Nothing they won't do to protect the filthy cities they've built for themselves. It's actually kind of hilarious as well. But I would still say that you can, like, in that you can read how he's so dogmatic in what he's saying. He's an idealist. And he's horny, because he has to mention that the fact that they fucked their mums, and nobody's watching his mum have sex, and all of this kind of stuff. And yeah, I'll admit Fiddlesticks is right that it's psychologizing it, but there's a lot of psychology in it. Like, it's all there, even in that phrase particularly. It's all they're just looking at the psychological makeup of, or what they see in their fathers. But what obviously they're not seeing is the idealistic turn in which they're interpreting it, and therefore projecting onto their own world. They're kind of essentially they're just rejecting everything. I'm not sure, in the synopsis it mentions something about objectivity. I don't recall that ever coming up in that phrase. It's true, they are trying to look at everything from a deific vantage point, I suppose, of like seeing through the bullshit, and actually attacking the psychology behind everything, or what they perceive to be that, because they believe that one person does, one thing in a very cause and effect, like there's only one answer to why they're doing this thing, because they're scared of what reality really is and all of this kind of stuff. But again, it is well, Painbow said it, it's the certainty of youth, but also the blindness of it. Is that kind of blind confidence that is glorious actually in of itself, I would say, but it being blind, it is totally unable to see the cracks in what it's or how it's viewing the world. But it can give birth to a passionate drive in oneself that I would say, although Mishima, did he live a good life? I don't know enough about the man to really like make judgment calls on it or whatever, but I have to admire his madness overall. Like, I get it. Like, he definitely explored many realms of his own way of looking at the world, from his mind to his body to the way he expressed both as well, the passion he put into everything, and the commitment that was there in the end. Like, you can only live that type of life through, I mean, I do get that the Japanese have a very different view of suicide, and especially when it comes to the commitment of it. in terms of, because I kind of think that they commit to it almost from birth, like in the way that we all know that we're going to die. I think the samurai probably would know that he's likely to die either by another sword or probably even more likely his own, because if he's ever put to shame in battle or whatever, that's too much to live with. And we've all seen it in films and stuff. It's like they often ask their masters and whatnot the permission to end their lives because of, you know, things like, and it's very different to Western values. Like, you know, we look at it as like it's an unthinkable kind of thing to imagine. And well, I think there's a good reason that you hardly ever hear of someone committing seppuku in the West. I guess you could say Elliot Smith kind of did it, but not really. He just stabbed himself. But it's not bad. Yeah, I think there's definitely that going on. So you've got it kind of like the surface level of each thing, and I don't mean that in a you know, I'm not criticizing it. It's almost like that's what you see on the face of it. But then I also believe that you've got every kind of personality of Mishima in it as well, because he is also that westernized Japanese man, the homosexual Japanese man. So it's like maybe Noboru's fascination with watching the mother has more to do with watching the man perform, you know, things like that. He sees some sort of something else in it. It doesn't really hint at that, but it's hard not to look into it or peep through its particular hole, because it does play quite a big role in the piece. Yeah, that's true. I do also think it's about your fate as well. So it's not looked at as something criminal for one thing. It's actually looked at something to be prideful about, to take into your own hands, and to again die in glory. I think a lot of the, like what the novel talks about, is having this moment in one's life where you could live a whole life of disgrace, but you could kind of make up for it in one moment of, you know, like kamikaze pilots and things like that. Like there's a sense of doing something for a higher good, and realizing that you are just one person out of millions or whatever, but you're also you realize that the life itself, or the culture that you're in and what you're trying to defend, is bigger than you, and therefore you lay yourself down for that. I mean, we had that a little bit in the West when it comes to war, but nowhere near in the same capacity, I would say. I think there was almost an art form to the way the Japanese looked at death, and I would say a more logical one, actually, because if we all know we're going to die, the only real logical step to take toward that would be to imagine your own death, and to, if you did have to take that in your own hands, it's surely better to have some sort of concept of how you're going to do it. And that's why it's pretty handy to have a culture surrounding it that kind of guides the way, let's say. Well, I mean, I would say that his achievements are something to marvel I like the balls. I mean, even the front of this thumbnail, he's actually posed with a samurai sword, topless. It's very homoerotic, but he does it with a sense of like, I don't know whether it's pride or just vanity or whatever, but he seems to embrace it. That's what I kind of admire. Apparently, he did go up to Dazai and called him a prick, basically, because he was envious of his writing ability, and he said he hated him because of that. I do kind of admire that. It's like the total opposite of what you'd imagine he'd do. Instead of being like, oh, I'm such a big fan and stuff, he's actually like, no, I despise and loathe you because I deem you to be better than me, but at the same time that is an inspiration. So I think it's actually more honest as well. Like, if people were more truthful about the things they were jealous about, they'd probably get over it a lot quicker, because it's like, really, what is jealousy? It's admiring a quality in another that you wish you had yourself. But if you use that as fuel, then that can at least guide you and potentially get you to a place at some point where perhaps you surpass the thing that once inspired you. So it's all in how you look at it. But look at like the way Dazai died. It wasn't exactly honourable. I mean, one of his failed attempts got one woman killed, and while he survived, and he had to live with that. And then he did the same thing again, but he got it right the next time. And he was too much of a pussy to stab himself in the stomach. He just wanted to drown, which was quite Sailor-esque, I would say. Sean Bean, that's a first. Better than Ricky Gervais, I'll give you that. I'll take it. Although I'd say Sean Bean's a bit more rugged looking than I am. Maybe in like 10 years. I don't know. Mishima's suicide is the ultimate form of gay pride. I don't know why I'm even finding that so funny. I just that's good. That's good. Although it would have been better if he stabbed himself from behind, through the back. But yeah, I get your meaning. He's dying almost with a phallic object literally penetrating through him. How'd you like that? True, but all the best people are hypocrites. I mean, in terms of him being a fascist, it's not hypocritical, because it's like living up to that Raskolnikov kind of ideal. Is like, should people of a higher intellect have more rights? In some ways, you could definitely see an argument for it. Like, does a person have more of a right to it than another? I'm not saying they do here, but I think those who often commit suicide are actually doing so in the opposite manner that they imagine it, meaning that they are actually being pro-life in it. It's too complementary to existence when you know it's going to end at some point anyway. I think it's also, it's obviously in grievance to life in some ways, but I don't know, there's something about it that's still... Schopenhauer said it better. Read what he had to say about suicide. But yeah, it's somewhere along those lines. But I mean, imagine actually having the will, like, never mind hanging yourself or whatever, but to actually take a blade and put it through the stomach, because you're going to bleed out. And I think the actual method would be to stab in, and then it's actually to try and slice across. So to have the mental will to do that is something. Yeah, I can't even imagine. Like, if you lost, on the battlefield, you do that and then your head gets cut off. But I mean, I was actually kind of curious about this. It's not like I've actually read up on him that much, but when reading his works, especially Confessions of a Mask, it's like so clear that, yeah, he's talking about a homosexual man in the closet during this period of Japan, and it's so vivid that you kind of like he's talking from experience, surely. And I kind of wonder, like, when it was actually published, was it not somewhat scandalous? Probably, but I guess it being fiction of sorts, he could employ plausible deniability. But at the same time, writers in many periods of history have been imprisoned or whatever because of far less than inciting such sin, but I'm not sure. And it's very painful. Can always rely on you, Patrick, for the for the science. Well, I mean, I would give it to the Japanese. Is at least they've taken it almost as a form of study, I would say, of like. And I still think it does make more sense, really, when you're to die at some point. They do kind of give it, I suppose, a somewhat spiritual significance, but then again, who doesn't when it comes to death? Whereas I don't really. I mean, I'm sure there are other cultures that have, their own viewpoints on such a practice, but outside of cults and things like that, you never really hear much about it. I wouldn't say. Most of the time it's just illegal, so. And yet most westernized cultures had the death penalty, so that's hypocritical to me. Like having one but not the other, or treating, you know what I mean? It just seems a bit off. Well, actually, if you were to like look at it in what we have today, you could argue that the looks maxing gym bros are actually just exercising their homoerotic tendencies, which I would say is, most of the time when you do work on your physique, it's other men who are gonna take notice of it more, and there's more of an obsession with men. Bodybuilders are the worst at this. It's incredibly gay. Like, if I was gay, I would say that that's too gay for me. Like, it's to the point where if it's autoerotic, they're literally, I mean, even gyms themselves, with the fucking mirrors everywhere, so you can constantly check on your progress or whatever, or just basically check yourself out. The level of narcissistic homoeroticism is off the fucking charts. And what are you doing in the gym? Lifting metal. You're not even doing anything useful. Like, at least in the past, people were building shit. You know, you were putting together a cathedral or whatever, or even you were just a slave. So it was either that or get killed. Whereas people pay to go inside these places and run on a treadmill listening to Chris Williamson. Jesus Christ. I mean, that's why it's better to have a bunch of kids killing kittens. In some ways, I do think every kid goes, especially a male kid, they do go through a period of this where they want to do something criminal. Actually, I think that it's that bloodlust, you can call it, or fascination with the morbid, or just the unknown in terms of, like, you learn society's rules, but then you see its contradictions and you start questioning it. So there is that part of you that wants to do something illegal, really. In the past, maybe that was easier because there were stricter rules, not written or even, legislated, but more that they were societal norms that you could break or not break, when it comes to reputation or substance abuse or whatever it might be. Even sex before marriage, things like that, they were seen as, it was, you were, especially if you were a woman, you were a disgrace if you did something like that. But that's kind of what also leads to the temptation. And as you are growing and your hormones are completely out of whack, I think people forget this. Holden Caulfield was a horny motherfucker, but you wouldn't really see that so much in him when you read the piece. Although he does mention how he gets a bit thirsty at times. But yeah, I mean, these kids would be experiencing the same thing. I mean, the reason he's looking through the peephole is because I would imagine that he is dehumanizing his mother so he can get an idea of what sex is. I mean, it's like it is in Confessions of a Mask. It's like he's opening a book. And as it says in the novel, when he actually goes into his mum's room, to him it's like it doesn't look the same. But when he looks through this portal, let's say, this little peephole, because his identity is removed, he's anonymous, it's like he can therefore look at it from a fresh perspective, and he doesn't have to accept responsibility or accountability for what he's seeing. Like cunts who make stupid fucking comments on a live stream. There's no accountability. I can't, you're not looking at me while you call me a prick. So in the same way, nobody's looking at Noboru when he's touching his prick. So doesn't say that he's doing this, but at the same time, what would he be doing it for then? Oh, he's just curious about anatomy. I don't think so. There's a part of him is curious about sex, as is, that's his rite of passage, shall we say. But they instead inflict it on a pussy of a different variety, and they literally rip it a new one. So, not to get too modern interpretive about it, but yeah, there's definitely an element of it that is, alright, this is what I think it kind of comes down to. If a young man, maybe not aged 13, but from the age of 13 up until about 16, 17, possibly even 20, doesn't get any access to a woman and to express this part of himself, he will find other ways to do it through violence normally. And even if he does get it, I don't know whether that would stop him doing the violent stuff as well. It's hard to say. But it probably would quell the passion for it. We're at the part of the stream when people just start throwing out random fucking... Why did this disappear? That's weird. Clockwork. Are you saying that because of what I said a minute ago? Or you're like a parrot. It just kind of pops into your head. Clockwork Orange. Just got to type it out. A little bit, but he's a lot older. And he does, well, not only rape a woman in that, but he has a threesome. He most certainly lets out his sexual side. And if anything, that probably makes his violent tendencies worse. I don't know. I'm not talking about Clockwork Orange, but... Does he really? That's interesting. I know I've got the book here, but I haven't actually read it. Because, well, it's not exactly a light read. So... But yeah, I mean, I do think in terms of rites of passage, I think especially nowadays, because there is a lot of young hopeless virgins, actually bringing back things like, I don't know, bar mitzvahs or whatever you want to call them, something that should acknowledge the fact that you are now a man in society's eyes or whatever, could help with this type of thing, possibly. Or at least it would give a sense of belonging to something bigger than yourself. I'm not sure if this is going to help when it comes to, yeah, fapping, but it might at least give some sort of insinuation that it's not all about you and your pee-pee. You know? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, well, I was going to say, I mean, do we want to read some more Mishima at some point? Because I would be intrigued to... not Confessions of a Mask. I don't really want to dive into that. Maybe somewhere really far down the line, but... I'm thinking possibly to revisit him at some point. Mainly because I'd be intrigued to see how similar the style is, but then also what types of themes he's going for. Yada, yada, yada. Yeah, I'll throw that out there, and I guess we can discuss what the next book's going to be, because it's going to be a while until I'm back, so we can read something a little longer if you wish. I might put it out there that we could read Blood Meridian. I don't know why I'm suggesting this. I have been recommended it a number of times. So, I mean, I've got a copy. I could be game for that, I suppose. But I'm open to other suggestions here, believe me. But yeah, it could be a classic of some sort or another. It's been a while since I dived into anything like that, or it could be whatever. To be honest, I mean, I'm open. On another note, as I'm going away, I mean, donation time, spin that wheel, wink, 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 you know. Oh yeah, well actually on that note, if you actually want to choose, you could just spin the wheel. If you only spin the wheel, it doesn't guarantee it, but you know, probably will. Well, that's a short story if I've ever read one in a sentence. I bought a bird to set him or her free today and went to the garden with it, put it on a tree, and a cat came and ate it in front of my eyes. I still feel guilty. Well, I mean, from a different perspective, you went out and bought albeit unknowingly, but still altruistically, a meal for a hungry cat who, as fate would have it, would come into your life that very day. I still find it weird. Why would you need to buy a bird? I assume it's from a pet shop or whatever. Hey, at least the cat's happy, you know. What's the fable? I think it's something like the sheep ask the wolves why they hate them, or something like. I think it's actually a bird, an eagle, asks some, you know, why do they hate us so? And it's like, well, they don't hate you. They love you. You taste great. So, you know, you could, if from a Japanese perspective, you were on, like the cat was honoring your very gracious gift by chowing it down from head to fucking tailbone right there and then. Oh, I hope you're not serious with that. Really? I think I might have had enough of doing the contemporary nonsense for now. I mean, maybe. But I mean, it's just, well, we got the brothers Karamazov or Orbital. Out of the two, I'd probably go for Orbital. Mainly because, I mean, I've read Karamazov. There are parts of it that I really like, as is the same with Crime and Punishment and The Idiot. But it kind of feels like I'm reading through pages to get to those parts a lot of the time. Yeah, I don't know. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. To me, it doesn't actually have to be long, to be honest. Fight Club. I mean, it's not long, but yeah, I mean, maybe I could be game. Crash, what? Ballad? There. I mean, I'd still, yeah, you should read it, but I ain't in the mood for that. But it is short, so keep it in mind for future. Roadside Picnic. Have a look. That's a sci-fi novel. It's pretty short. I mean, I'm definitely up for having it on the list, but it sounds like one that we could read, you know, in a week. So well, you know, sometimes that's what a girl needs. It's quite a nice bottle of wine. Aldi, £5 at the moment. It's actually got a nice velvety cover, which probably I paid for, but Castel de Monte Rosso. It's pretty fucking nice, actually, I have to say. You're going to make me decide this, aren't you? You're just going to make me... Yeah, I'm not going to be back for 2 weeks at least, because I'm going away on the 20th and I won't be back until the 4th, so I'll be streaming probably on the 7th, I think, so it's quite a while away. You can't be just mentioning authors. I want the names of the books, please. Oh. Now you got me looking around for something. Yeah, Cat's Cradle, I remember being thrown in there. I'm not sure it's going to win the vote. I read Vonnegut quite a long time ago, but I remember enjoying it quite a bit. But I think that was like Breakfast of Champions. Painby, you ever read The Sisters Brothers? By Patrick DeWitt, I believe. I reckon you'd enjoy this. It was made into a film, but the film, it's alright, but the book was a lot better. Make a donation and you can pick the book and then pick the next person who has to pick the book if you want. The Count of Monte Cristo, I'd say no. I love that book, but I don't want to take a fucking hardback this big with me on holiday. But I recommend the film that's recently come out. I have watched. I do think it's a good adaptation, but it falters halfway through. But I did quite like it. It captures the epicness of the story pretty well, but I think it gets a bit. It shies away from the darkness of it all as it goes on, which is a shame because it seems like it's gonna really. Yeah, go there with it, but it just loses its nerve, probably because of woke nonsense or something or other. But yeah, it gets a little bit clean, which I found a weird choice. But Journey to the End of the Night, that's a shout. Infinite Jest. I mean, I have. It's on my list. How long is that? Let me have a look. A 1,088 pages. I've never actually read the synopsis. Okay. A gargantuan, mind-altering tragicomedy about the pursuit of happiness in America, set in an addict's halfway house and a tennis academy, and featuring the most endearingly screwed-up family to come along in recent fiction. Infinite Jest explores essential questions about what entertainment is and why it has come to so dominate our lives, about how our desire for entertainment affects our need to connect with other people, and about what the pleasures we choose say about who we are. Equal parts philosophical quest and screwball comedy, Infinite Jest bends every rule of fiction without sacrificing for a moment its own entertainment value. It is an exuberant, uniquely American exploration of the passions that make us human, and one of those rare books that renew the idea of what a novel can do. Well, it looks like it's going to be my call because well, I am the daddy, so. Convenience store woman. Kyeko has never fit in, neither in her family nor in school, but when at the age of 18 she begins working at the Hiromashi branch of Smile Mart, she finds peace and purpose in her life. In the store, unlike anywhere else, she understands the rules of social interaction. Many are laid out line by line in the store's manual, and she does her best to copy the dress, mannerisms and speech of her colleagues, playing the part of a normal person excellently, more or less. Kyeko is very happy, but the people close to her, from her family to her co-workers, increasingly pressure her to find a husband and to start a proper career, prompting her to take desperate action. A brilliant depiction of a world hidden from view, Convenience Store Woman is an ironic and sharp-eyed look at contemporary work culture and the pressures we all feel to conform, as well as a charming and completely fresh portrait of an unforgettable heroine. Yeah, sounds alright. It's got that kind of feel of a very contemporary piece, and that isn't a compliment. I mean, more into like the synopsis, like those types of write-ups. I'm getting very last 10 years type of vibe, but it does sound, a decent read. But I have read Breasts and Eggs, and I thought that was pretty mediocre, and apparently other readers enjoyed that. Mediocre might be harsh, but I didn't think much of it. Readers also enjoyed My Year of Rest and Relaxation, MOSFET, I Who Have Never Known Men, Jacqueline Hartman, and The Vegetarian by Han Kang. I think that might be a bit much of this type of novel. But I'm down. Not sure it should be the next one, but After Dark, Murakami. Yeah, but to be honest, I'm at this stage where I'm not too bothered about the page count. I mean, I'm going to be on holiday getting ass, so the fuck do I care how long the book is? I'd like to reread Serotonin. Yeah, same. Not sure I want to reread it now. Don't know. All right, I'll propose a few, and the Dice Man. I could reread. That's a holiday read. That's just fun. A lot of fun. It's long, but it's good fun. I reckon you guys would fucking love it, actually. So I got the Dice Man. Journey to the End of the Night would be interesting. I am throwing out books that I've already read, which I might be more interested to read something new. Maybe some Bret Easton Ellis. It's not the most fun novelist to read, but I'd say no to Japanese, mainly because we just read Mishima. We're gonna read more Japanese authors because most of them are incels. So, come on. It's blatantly going to happen. I don't know. I think the only one I noted down was one. I think Painbow read it. Yeah, Bad Girl by Yoisa, which apparently he liked. Come on, you gotta give me something here, because I'm fucking tired. It's been a long day. The Mongolian Conspiracy. I'll have a look at it, but no. I'll put it on the list, but for now, no. Ugh. I mean, at this rate, I'm just going to pick myself. Oh, what about the Songs of Maldrador? That's something I've always wanted to read. Body by Harry Crews, as the Lincoln suggested. Cheryl DuPont, who abandoned her former name, Dorothy Turnipseed, when she left Waycross, Georgia, to seek fame and fortune with bodybuilder Russell Morgan, finds her new life threatened by the arrival of her corpulent redneck family. Fuck is this? I don't even know what to make of what this is supposed to be about. This sounds like some okay, here's a review. My third cruise and my third 1-star rating. These novels are not comedic, rather they are gratuitously reaching for the offensive. They are not gritty, rather they are moronic and stupid, topped with gratuitous violence. They are not real, rather they are false. This guy doesn't know how to write. And the dialogue is ridiculous and canned. They are not even engaging stories, rather they are ineffably boring. Somehow I've made it through 3 of them because they are short. It sounds like he's a fan. That's one thing going for them. Unfortunately, I pretty much his whole canon. What a strange review. I mean, I put it in, but it sounds like it would be a pretty quick read. Kind of. Sounds like a load of shit, to be honest, but read the list. What, you think I've actually been noting all of these down? Come on. I've only got Bad Girl in here. Maybe there's some others. Don't look like it. Might be on my... I don't use Goodreads, so I don't know even how to find this shit. Demons by Dostoevsky. Epitaph of a Small Winner. Cat's Cradle. I mean, some of these are going back a long way. The Songs of Maldrador would be another. The Damned United. That's a book I've wanted to read. Apparently that's very short though. Roadside Picnic. There's too many on it for me to break it down. Give me a sec. We'll work this out. Okay, number one. All right, this is number one. I'll write it down as well. Just to make it easier. Here's the synopsis for this one. Handsome, ambitious Julian Sorel is determined to rise above his humble provincial origins, soon realizing that success can only be achieved by adopting the subtle code of hypocrisy by which society operates. He begins to achieve advancement through deceit and self-interest. His triumphant career takes him into the heart of glamorous Parisian society, along the way conquering the gentle married Madame de Renal and the haughty Mathilde. But then Julian commits an unexpected, devastating crime and brings about his own downfall. The Red and the Black is a lively satirical portrayal of French society after Waterloo, riddled with corruption, greed and ennui. And Julian, the cold exploiter whose Machiavellian campaign is undercut by his own emotions, is one of the most intriguing characters in European literature. 577 pages, first published in January 1st, 1830. That's number one. Give me a minute. I'm going to try and get a nice juicy order here. This one might be a bit tricky to find, but fuck it. Number two. Oh, fuck off. Fucking can't copy and paste on this shit. Kawanewski. Is that right? Kawanewski. Yeah, that looks about right. I'll try and find a better synopsis. Okay, so the only synopsis I have of this at the moment. This novel leads the reader into the mind and universe of a rat, and in doing so transforms one of nature's most despised animals into a creature representative of us all. Published in 1990. At the moment, I don't know how long it is. What the fuck is his name? This might be one of those forgotten novels. See if I can get a bit more info on it. According to a copy on Amazon, it's 176 pages long. It just, one of the reviews says this book is terrifying. I don't know what it is, but I got a little feeling that this book might be a bit of a undiscovered gem. That'd be number 2. Well, you are an animal. What do you think you're doing when you're fucking playing with your penis? Come on. Don't be a faggot. Alright, let me read this one. Maybe this is a better synopsis. So we're still on rat. Not since Patrick Süskind's bestseller Perfume half a dozen years ago has a work of fiction from abroad created such a pre-publication excitement. Well, I don't know about that. It's got fuck all reviews. Blah, blah, blah. Zaniewski's novel Rats takes as its protagonist one of the most feared and maligned creatures on the planet. Rattus Novajekis and Rattus, the domestic rat and the grey rat, the two basic species of the great rat family, have accompanied humankind since the beginning of its existence. Throughout history, people have created conditions favourable for rats and enabled the species to survive and prosper. In Rat, the author has undertaken the formidable task of describing the world from that animal's viewpoint. In a place of darkness and mystery, a rat takes us from his first moments of consciousness to his final breath. With uncanny ability, the author manages to lead the reader into the mind and universe of his protagonist, to transform one of nature's blah blah blah, said that already, in the gutters, drains and sewers in which the rat lives, so we may identify our own world. In the rat's pain, our pain, in its fear, our fear and despair, and in its restless wanderings with daily survival and uncertainty, our own fate. Rat is a powerful allegory about the laws that govern us all, about our mythologies, truth and lies, love and hope, loneliness and longing, blah blah blah. I do like the sound of this book. I don't know why, but I get a gut feeling from it. Anyway, that's number 2. Patience. Just give me a second. I'm nearly there. So I'm trying to find the happy medium. Alright, we got it. Well, I have to admit, yeah, book 2 is a difficult one to find. I'll do my best to find it, so you know, we can all read it. But it exists. It's just, you know, not an easy one to uncover by the sound of it. But okay, so that is number 3. This will be the vote. The Woman in the Dunes. After missing the last bus home following a day trip to the seashore, an amateur entomologist is offered lodging for the night at the bottom of a vast sandpit. But when he attempts to leave the next morning, he quickly discovers that the locals have other plans. Held captive with seemingly no chance of escape, he is tasked with shoveling back the ever-advancing sand dunes that threaten to destroy the village. His only companion is an odd young woman, and together their fates become intertwined as they work side by side through this Sisyphean of tasks. Yeah, I mean, I know. I think one or maybe 2 of you actually mentioned this a long time ago. That's why it's on the list. But let me. So I have. So 1 vote for 3. Thank you. And then there is another vote for 3. 1 or 3 is fine. No, 1 or 3 is not fine. Pick one, motherfucker. Oh, you've already picked one anyway. You said 3 the first time. I mean, I'm disgusted no one's voting. To be honest, I'm probably going to read Rat anyway. But, you know, I got 2 votes for 3 at the moment. Look at that. You can't see that, can you? Look at that. Look how grey it is. That's not even the light either. That's if you could see. Yeah, look at that. Fuck me. If I dyed my hair, I won't even go there. Make your votes. He's a wise man. He's a wise man. Well, then read 2, motherfucker. I mean, I'm up for Rat, I'll admit, but it's very short, and it might actually. I don't even know how easy it's going to be for me to find. We could do a double header. Nah, so it's all good. I'll be reading as I'm getting the pussy. Like I like the idea of reading Rat whilst rutting. Reading Rat Rot. I shouldn't try to do tongue twisters while I'm drunk. I find it hard enough to read when I'm drunk. I'll be reading Rat whilst rutting. There we go. Okay, to the next bottle. This is also £5 in Aldi at the moment. A Marqués de Cosuenda, a product of Spain. Do you think they only make wine bottles because you get that glorious sound as you pour it, that glug sound? Just you don't get, even with beer bottles, that sound. You don't get that glug, you know. Are you sure you're married? If you are married, I'm imagining that your wife is a very... It's almost like you're doing the nagging for her at times, you know. I'm guessing you don't get a lot of back chat. Because even when you get what you want, you find a way to bitch. It's like you take on the male role of like being, you know, dominant and suggestive and taking charge, but then you get your result and you're a bitch. So it's like maybe you are Mishima. Like that's what I might have, we might have discovered this. You really need a cock in the ass. That's what I mean, that's even better than getting a book suggested, really, if we can actually uncover what it is you're truly after. What is your golden temple, as it were? He's retired, maybe, but he's still looking. He's still out there. When Painbow looks at a sunset, he doesn't see... He doesn't see a circle like you and I would see. He sees the end of a cock. He sees a Jap's eye in the distance, coming ever closer, but never quite reaching his mouth. You know? Or arsehole. Or whatever position he's in, it's not quite reaching, it's just there in the distance. No, because you said none of them are whoppers. You haven't even read any of them yet. The woman in the Dunes might be up there with fucking I You Have Never Known Men as fucking you should know, or I should let you know. That's why I fucking recommended it. Rat might also be a great read, and whatever the first one was. What was the fucking first one? I mean, this is what happens when you make me do the work. I mean, come on. You guys should be coming to me going, oh, GC, I've got this, like, amazing book. Yeah, even the red and the black. I think it might take a bit of getting used to it because it's fucking old. But it could also be a great read. Oh, look at this. Patrick's jealous. Where's my wine, motherfucker? Look at this shit. I'm buying bottles of fucking Audi Plonk because of your lazy... He's been dangling the fishing pole of a wine box with me for about a month, and I haven't seen shit. And now he's getting jealous because I'm talking to fucking Painbow more than him. Anyway, let's keep it civilized. Well, I thought so as well, but then I kind of realised halfway through that I don't really give a shit. You know, we can do a big one at some other point, as far as I'm concerned. I actually also think that we should read A Christmas Carol for Christmas. It's a short read. I don't even know why I said that really, but yeah. The problem is nowadays is that you still get the sense of achievement, or whatever you want to call it. Like, it's nice to know that you've read something that's 1,000 pages or whatever. But even when it comes to the Count of Monte Cristo, the Brothers Karamazov, whatever it is, realistically, they could have been cut down. Let's be fair. A lot of the classics, they were getting paid by the line. That gave them incentive to add bollocks. Like, actually, it's funny nowadays because you get the same thing. It's just that it's like the reverse. There's an incentive in the past for writers to actually write, whereas now there's more of an incentive to write less, release, write more, release, because there's more money in releasing it quicker. The same way that a lot of YouTubers will make 6-hour videos because there's actually weirdly more demand for that. I would say because we live in a very atomized, lonely and non-attentive society now, where people flick things on whilst they're doing their ironing or taking a dump or whatever, washing in general. They're not really listening to it. It's just there because they probably want to fuck the person, or they like their voice, or they actually feel like a friend. You know, this is, and never mind, you know, the lack of male role models. It's the lack of human connection in general that is thriving on the parasocial level. Doesn't matter what you're talking about. That's the reason so many YouTubers and influencers and whatnot end up doing the same thing over and over and over again, because that's all. People just want the comfort of familiarity. Family actually is, you know, the thing people are lacking. It's fucking tragic. But you're drinking it, you motherfucker. Well then, you know, you get what you deserve. True, but you voted for it, so. And let's face it, I'd always do an Asian, so. All right, if we don't want to do it, I mean, I could do all three, probably, maybe. I could do two, but to be honest, never mind the red and the black. I'm only going to be focused on the pink and the stink. So. I don't know. I should have just made you read Lolita. I don't even know what that crossover is, but correct. I mean, if you're misspelling rat, then not sure what difference it was going to make in the long run. What are we actually reading then? The Woman in the Dunes. I don't know why I've got hesitation with that word. Dunes. Dunes? Dunes. Dunes. If you want, we can have a double header. It was my misspelling. My misspelling. You cheeky bastard. Doesn't even apostrophize the fucking author's name. And he has the audacity. Well, you could be right. I've only said what's on here. This isn't my fault. Dunes. Tuesday. I wrote it with a K. Alright, fair enough. Got nothing to say. This isn't a club, is it? It's more of a let's attack GC for trying to get people together to read a book. Fucking hell. Outrageous. No, it's no wonder I get so many fucking cunts coming on here. Anyway, this has gone on too long. Thank you, Yukio Mishima, for writing your novel, which I probably stopped talking about an hour ago. But whatever. Good fucking book. Let's admit, it's a good read. It's good. Like, if any one of us could pen something like that, I'd shave about 10k words off it, and then I think you might have something perfect there, like Kafka level metamorphosis perfection. But you know, not quite. We do need to read some Orwell, actually, at some point. Yeah, I mean, talk about a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, but I do this a lot as well. Like I look on stuff. Blink twice, shite. Woman of the hour, shite. So much shite. Like it's mind-boggling. A Different Man, that could have been a really good film. Shite. Like annoyingly shite as well. Like it's actually quite fascinating, the first like half an hour, 45 minutes, and then it just I don't know. I kind of just have to say this is women's fault. Like the three films I've mentioned could have been good regardless of the fact that women were predominantly in the roles, and yet just fucked it. I mean, A Different Man is actually the opposite, but they still win. Just yeah, shite. Oddity was good, and The Substance I actually liked. I liked it, kind of. It's it's too long, but I couldn't help but I did like the ending. You'll like it. I mean, you like Margaret Qualley anyway, so yeah. Watch it for her and have fun with it. But it has no depth whatsoever, and yet ironically, it's kind of that's the kind of message it's trying to give. I don't know. It doesn't quite pull off, but. That is actually on the list because I've got it up here. Up on the, there it is. That is a copy of Down and Out. But yeah, I'll leave it alone for a bit. I haven't read it for quite a while, but it will be getting read. Anyway, I've got to go. I'm just going to be here all fucking night talking bollocks. So I like to keep my streams controlled and organised, you know. And cheers for the complete lack of donations, by the way. I mean, fucking hell. If I ever disappear from this shit, I mean, you should know why. Just take a good long hard look in the mirror and find someone else to piss your fucking time away on. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't blame you. So easy to find. Like, you can just get so many distractions now. I think the reason so many things suck is just because it's too easy. It's too easy, and when everything becomes like commonplace, like it's just a product, that's it. Nothing can really thrive. There's no culture, essentially, really. There's nothing that's really going to have any input on culture anymore because there's no culture there to tap into. It's like it works both ways, you know. So that's why everything becomes a mindless product placement. Even with, you know, these so-called down-to-earth people that, you know, I'm guilty of the same. I'm always saying, give me your money. But at least I'm honest with what I'm doing. I'm not trying to flog you some bullshit. I'm not promising you, oh, you can write a better sentence if you just follow my course. $50. Listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. Don't know how to fuck? Let me take you through. Everything's fucking monetized. It's so depressing. So depressing. I mean, I would love a kind of before and after the last 20 years of like when people had common sense and now people have none. So it's like you have to kind of re-establish people to just thinking in a common way of like, oh yeah, maybe having a shower and looking after myself slightly and, you know, eating reasonably well, maybe I'll feel a little bit better if I do that. Okay. People would have monetized it. I actually made, you know, these people on Twitch or whatever, and they're like gaming. Can you imagine someone in the 90s or late 80s as like a TV producer going, hey, I've got an idea. That guy's pretty popular. This chick, you know, she's smoking at the moment. Everyone loves her. Why don't we just get her to play the latest SNES game or Mega Drive system, and we just put it on TV, and people can call in and just tell us what they think. They can just comment. And this is an idea for a TV show. And yet, you can imagine that the picture would just get laughed out of the fucking board meeting room. And yet, that's what's become the thing people do. People sit down and watch somebody else play a game that they could be playing. The fuck? The fuck? And that isn't even like, that's hardly at the, I'm not triaging it. That's not the height of it. Like, there's worse things out there. But even that to me is like, it's mind-boggling to think people would just tune in to watch someone playing a fucking game. But yeah, there we are. Here we are. Thank you for watching my review. Always fun. I wish like the new people who join this weren't always absolute fucking dildos. Like, that would be nice. Like, what the fuck is this? I don't get it. Anytime someone new turns up, it's just someone calling me an absolute twat, which I could handle if they did it in a nice kind of, well, not even nice, like at least there was a bit of je ne sais quoi, bit of gift of the gab to what they were saying, not just this is the typical twat. Like, I'm so sick of that. Like, okay, put your dick away, incel. Go fuck off somewhere else. Give me a bit. Play with me, you know, a little bit. That's why Painbug gets away with it. It's just, have a bit of humanity about yourselves. Jesus fucking Christ. This is where I bid you adieu. I'll keep you abreast of the info, I suppose. What is it? The Woman in the Dunes, right? That's what we're going to read. Just so I fucking know. Yeah, alright. I'll read that. I might actually read The Rat as well, or Rat, if I can find it. Hopefully I can. Because I do actually want to read that. If I do, I'll do a community post or whatever, and maybe 5 of you will know. And yeah, I might do a double header, because yeah, who cares? Why not? And maybe the red and the black as well, but I doubt it. I'd love a PDF. You can PDF file me anytime you like. I'm so wasted. Like, if I was born like just one step above my fucking social destiny, man, I'd be like Trump. I swear. That's the level. That's the difference. Those are the inches. And yet I'm stuck down here under this glass ceiling with the rats. That's why that's the only reason I want to read this book. Something I can finally relate to. Hey, I mean, that's an idea. I'd be up for that. I'd be up for you fucking crawling back on your hands and fucking knees, donating £1,000, saying I'm so sorry I took so long to read this, because this is probably the best novel, not only that I've ever read, but that actually ever existed. Like, you should actually commit seppuku because you chose so long to read it. That's how confident I am. Like, never mind all this fucking faggy tartar step bullshit. and Lolita nonsense. It's all there. It's all there, all in one package. It's like a Christmas present that comes in your face constantly so much that you can't even see what it is. And yet by the time you do, it's already in your arsehole, it's already in your hands, it's already on the screen. It's just there. It's just endless entertainment. It's like VR in a universe that is your whole life. Like Vanilla Sky shit. All in one novel. You won't even know you're alive. Or you won't even know you're born. This is what I've given to the world and no one knows it. The only people who discover it are these woke, brainwashed, fucking faggy, pride-waving cockaverse fucking lesbians. Let's face it, most lesbians are actually disgusting. Like in personality, I mean, not disgusting in what they do. Personality. Horrible people. Fuck them. And they're the only people who review my work. I should be careful because I'm already getting done for hate speech all the time because YouTube doesn't have a sense of humour. But yeah, read Heather. It's fucking bot world we're turning into. Man, I don't care if you hate it anyway. Hate it. I would be very surprised if you genuinely really hate it that much. Really, honestly. And if you do, fuck it. All good. From the way, or the books that I've seen you review and how you review them and your interpretation and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. Even if it's not the VR orgasma extravaganza that I'm promising. What is the email? Are you fucking serious? Alright, fine. Here it is. I mean, it's in the video description, for one thing. But, whatever. Just so we're clear. Let me just check if so. Yeah, it's right. No, but I do feel like they get away with, like most of the ones that I've met, even from an outside objective perspective, they're just as bad as the worst types of guys that you meet, if not worse, because they're female and because they can manipulate, knowing that they're not. It's like these. I seriously think some of them just wish they were guys so that they could actually, do what they do, knowing they actually have the muscle power to back it up. They're terrifying. Admittedly, I do think this is only 5% of lesbians or whatever, but yeah. Anyway, it's been fun. I hope you're see? I mean, Painbow doesn't like to admit it, but I am Batman to his Robin. Like, he knows it really. That's why he hates me. Because I make him wear the fucking yellow and pink cape and run around like a bitch. And I fuck all the women that come to him. But really, he knows. Without me, he's nothing. He's nothing but Alright, I'm off. We're going to read Woman in the Dunes and Rat probably just me and Painbow, and maybe Sin will read that. But fucking hell. I need to go to bed. But until next time, you lovely bastards. Oh. Thank you. I'm actually probably going to read that first, but it doesn't really mean anything. Okay, yeah. So next time we'll do Rat, and we'll do The Woman in the Dunes, whatever. All right. Okay. It's been fun, as always. Thanks for not sending me any donations. I love ending a stream on that. It's just, you know, it warms my heart. Until then, yeah. Don't die in the meantime. It's nearly Christmas. And there will be a Christmas stream, by the way. And Patrick, where's my fucking wine? You tight motherfucker. At least whatever. Fucking alright, adios.